Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. Today we got a great episode for you. Um, Actually, we're bringing back another special guest host. My boy JB's coming back, and he said that he had some problems with what I said about the rookie quarterbacks and stuff like that. So we're gonna talk about that, and we're gonna see what's going on with that. So you guys just stick around with me as I get to school in again. You know, we do this from week to week. Excuse me, I just had to sip my beverage. All right. So while we got my boy JB coming on through, we're gonna connect to that and we're gonna get this going. You know what I'm saying?
Going on.
JB, welcome back, baby. We was waiting for
Already
you, man.
know.
We so happy to have you back, man. Listen,
Yeah.
I just talked to everybody about everything. They said you had some stuff to say about these rookie quarterbacks. So I said let's just get into it.
Need my little drink first. So yeah, man, I seen last episode.
Uh-huh.
I seen where you were saying, I don't know if it was like misconstrued words or whatever, but you was doing your rebuttals and you were saying that I said Anthony Richardson was the best quarterback and all this other stuff, which was not really totally true of what I said.
I mean,
What
listen, if I heard correctly, you said
I,
I thought. Let me say this. Let me. You know, sometimes you gotta check yourself. You feel me?
yeah, okay.
I thought what you said was that he was the best of the top three quarterbacks that was in that draft.
I said he had probably the best potential of all of the quarterbacks in the draft. But I do not think coming in out of the draft, he's the best of the top three.
Okay. All right. All
So
right.
based on his ceiling, based on his athleticism to add with what he could do as a quarterback, based on where he was, like going to the Colts rather than going to Houston. The Panthers really aren't that bad. Even the Titans aren't that bad, but we'll get into all that when we talk about the rookie quarterbacks. But I just feel like with all of that being said, he had the potential to be the best quarterback in this draft. But I'm not necessarily saying he's the best quarterback in this draft.
Okay. Okay. Cool. 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 I hear what you're saying. You
So
know,
that is
I don't want to
a,
misconstrue you. That's why you back here because I don't want to misconstrue you.
yeah, no, appreciate that.
So all right, cool. Let's just start. So let's jump from the back and then whoa, that was
Ooh,
crazy. That was
yikes.
crazy. That was
So,
crazy. We was
so
watching. See, that probably happened because we was watching that Cameron and
definitely a pause moment.
and
Definitely
Mace.
a pause moment.
Okay, so let's start with the fifth quarterback, and we'll move up to the first one. So the fifth
Okay.
quarterback was Hendon Hooker out of
Yeah.
Tennessee. Tell me what you think about him.
Um, I think he's probably the quarterback that they would call a project. So I don't think he's going to see the field anytime soon unless Jared Goff gets hurt.
Right.
Um, but I like his skill set. He's not as you expect. You see the black quarterback, you see dual threat, you think runner, athletic. He's not as runner as you would think. He does actually have good passing. Maybe not as accurate. Got a nice little arm. He can do things. He's a smart quarterback. He's smarter than he gets credit for, which I think happens with a lot of black quarterbacks. But I think he's talented. I just where he got drafted, and the round he got drafted, I don't think we're gonna see him anytime soon. We're gonna see him in the preseason, then he's probably just gonna sit for a while. I think he's a talented kid, but he just doesn't wow me. I don't, I mean, I don't see him being the next big thing, but maybe he can develop into something pretty good.
See, I actually really like him. So the only thing working against him today to me is that he's 25.
Yeah,
That's really it. If it wasn't for that, like if it wasn't for that, I would be saying, of course, yeah, sit him down, let him work on his stuff. But like his ceiling, I'm gonna say his ceiling, you're gonna be like, wow. I see his ceiling being somewhere like it could be like Steve McNair.
I'm honestly, I'm not. That's not wow to me. I'm not mad at that. Like,
I
I
think
don't see him being the next Steve McNair, but I definitely could see that as his ceiling if he could get the right opportunity. I just don't see opportunities coming his way as fast as the rest of the quarterbacks.
I think Jared Goff is, but I think this is a good situation for him because Jared Goff, yeah, he's going to start this year. I think he does. Now, I will say this. Now, I'm a type of person you either show me you this good or you're probably not. So if he don't start like not this year, but like next year, if he doesn't have the ability, then I'll say, all right, you know what I mean, 26 years old, you ain't never started an NFL game. Hey, that's probably not what's going to happen. But I definitely think that like he's able like next year to like come in after sitting this year, sitting behind Jared Goff. I think that this is a good situation for him. You know what I mean? I'm pretty high on the Lions now today and like where their quarterback situation is in the near future.
So after the year Jared Goff had last year, you think if he has a decent year this year that uh Hooker could still start?
So when you say next year, you're talking about next year.
So like he has a if Jared Goff has a okay season this year, you think going into next year they'll be talking about quarterback controversy and Hayden Hooker to start over Jared Goff?
I think if Detroit like gets bounced in like the first round, if they even if they make the playoffs and get bounced in the first round, yeah, I think that opens up the door for Hayden Hooker to come in and be able to start the year after. Yeah.
I don't know. I think if he did get the proper opportunities, he could be, he could be something special. Because I do like him. I'm not like anything I'm saying about him. I'm
Right,
not
right.
talented. I just don't see the opportunities coming his way. And then adding that factor that he's already 25. You know what I mean? How much they're going to expect you to jump even faster because you're not 20 years old and you don't have a lot of time left and stuff. So I don't know. And then he had like a major leg injury or something like that too. Like he came off or something like that.
I'm not sure, but I know this year off is going to be great for him. So, so
That's definitely true. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like he's not going to have nowhere near the opportunities the other four quarterbacks are going to have.
okay, all right, cool. So moving on to Will Levis. What you think about Will Levis?
So
I got
I
an interesting take on him, by the way. So, but like, go ahead.
I heard the hype about him, and then I turned and I only watched like one game of his last year. And I want to say it might have been against Florida, which was crazy. But he looked what everybody said. And I was like, yo, this kid might actually be, who they're saying he is, might be as talented. Then I didn't really watch him or hear from him too much. And then, end of the year, they said he had a rough season. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, well, I seen the mechanics. I seen, the good things. And then I just looked into like, now his situation. Second round draft pick, Tennessee Titans, having quarterback troubles. I could see him sneaking in there and being able to play sooner than people think. I'm just not 100% sure he's that guy. Like, after the season was over, I would take Hayden Hooker over Will Levis.
Oh, I would easily do.
Yeah, like
But I think I'm gonna be honest. I think Will Levis is gonna be a bust, and I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you why. First of all, he's not gonna play this year because they didn't release Ryan Tannehill, so he's not going to play this year. So now we're talking about next year. When you look at what they have looking at next year, I think that takes. If you could tell me what you think about it, but I think that takes Derrick Henry out of his prime. So you're not going to have that running game. I think what that defense is, I think we've seen the best of what that defense is. And I think they're going to be looking at more of, all right, we got to start a lot of these things again. You know what I mean? They paid a lot of money into things because they went to the AFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. But as I was saying on the last episode, I think quarterback is a spot where demeanor, how you carry yourself, and like what your interests are. I think that kind of shows like the difference between like a good quarterback and a great quarterback. Like I think great quarterbacks, they're boring, they're corny. They don't want to like be cool. Like, you know what I mean? And I think more times than not that shows up. And I think for me, Will Levis is the kind of guy that's like, this is just what I saw when they were talking about him. He's the kind of guy who got a six pack, and he wants you to focus on his six pack. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean. He want to be photogenic, and he want to do that, and that doesn't look like to me in my head. I'm gonna stay in that film room and watch film all day. So for me, considering that I think that Tennessee's going to be picking up or starting over, he's not the guy that's going to pick up all of those pieces, and his demeanor doesn't look like to me what he's going to have to do to be a great quarterback. He has an excellent arm. He's got speed, and I think he'll lean on that instead of what actually makes a quarterback better than all the rest of the quarterbacks.
Yeah. See, but that's the thing. Like, I think Tannehill got exposed. I never thought he was as good as everybody else thought. When they gave him the second chance, I'm like, this is crazy. He got lucky. You know, you go to a team where you could run the ball 50 times a game almost, and then you could play action, throw to your big, tough receivers, and it worked for you. And you had an amazing year, and they were talking about paying you all this money and a second chance at the game and all this other stuff. And then it's like, as soon as y'all got rid of those wide receiver weapons, you kind of got exposed again. And then Derrick Henry gets hurt, and you kind of get exposed completely. So I think this is the year that they were already talking about starting the other quarterback. I can't think of his name. I'm so sorry. But
the guy from Liberty.
Malik
Willis.
Yeah. So they were already talking about him being the starter.
Right.
Now you bring in this guy who, you know, once again, the media likes, and they've been trying to push all year over these other, you know, minority quarterbacks, so we say. And now he's in like the perfect opportunity to get on the field. And I just think that with him getting on the field, is he have some talent? Yes, I do think he has some talent. But I can't say I fully disagree with you. I do see bust there.
Mm-hmm.
And me, I don't see it as a bust because you didn't go top 5, top 10, whatever. You're not looking to be the starter day one. So if you do come in and you just drop the ball because you're not good enough, you're just going to be, backup quarterback that didn't make it. And I don't really look at all of those guys as busts. I kind of think the bust is more so those
That's
top
fair.
50
That's
picks,
fair. That's
those
fair.
top
That's fair.
picks that didn't do just because top 15, you're expected to start right away and go right away unless you're in a good situation. But yeah, I don't know if I can necessarily say bust, but yes, I do agree with what you mean by that, as he probably ain't the answer to what they're going to need when they need it.
I understand. That's a fair point. That's a good point. Okay, cool. Well, I don't have much to say about Will Levis after that, but I feel like he's looking at me like, all right, so what you got next?
Nah. So we could get into the big three.
The big three. Okay, this is where we talk about if you're gonna be a bust. This is where
these are the bust guys. If there's going to be a bust.
All right, cool. So now we're gonna talk about my Indianapolis Colts, and we can talk about Anthony Richardson.
Yes.
Give me what you got.
This is why I say his potential is high. He showed big arm.
I like how you said, this is why I said what I said.
He showed big arm. He shows athleticism. You know, baby Cam number 2, all of that good stuff. I think he has all the talents as the quarterback. I don't know if he has the throw through a window accuracy right yet. But I don't think every single quarterback needs that to be successful. I just think I think teams need to elaborate on the major tools you have. And he has a lot of major tools that you can elaborate on. I think with that offense you guys have, I think with Taylor in the backfield, I feel like he's going to get back right. I don't think the injuries are going to ail him too much longer. I think this year he's going to be back healthy. I like Pittman Jr. Y'all did add another receiver. I forgot who it was. I think he'll get acclimated with that offense, and I think he can do so good with that offense. He's kind of put in a good situation as long as he's being utilized properly. I just feel like sometimes we have these guys who we know has everything, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's organization wise, it's kind of like the same talk we had with Lamar Jackson, or and a couple other times we've seen it. Sometimes they just don't give these guys that confidence boost they need. They don't give these guys what they need to work around their tools, and it diminishes the talent of the player. Y'all are on the fence. What if y'all are going to do that with him or not? But outside of that, outside of thinking too deep into it, I think naturally with the skill set he has, with the offense y'all have, I think he's going to be a great player. I think you saying 70%, pass, accuracy as far as like stuff like that, like percentage of completions and all, I think that's a very high number. Those are like elite quarterback numbers. 70% is very high. That's like up there with some of the greatest. I feel like he can do very, very well in that. He couldn't be your franchise quarterback.
So, okay. So if you're going to get somebody if you're going to get a quarterback in the top 5, I think you need him to be elite. And I think, because if you think like nobody drafts a quarterback in the top 5 and says, oh, he can be okay.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about okay in the sense of, or elite in the sense of now. I'm talking that's elite in the sense of quarterback history.
Mm-hmm.
It's quarterbacks who could have been even better, but injuries came, they got traded, whatever. You know what I mean? So like, I just think that that's a very high ceiling you're trying to throw him to this early. I do believe he can be the franchise quarterback. I'm not a person that says to be a franchise quarterback, you have to take him to the promised land, win a Super Bowl, none of that shit. I believe the Super Bowl thing comes with a full team effort, but I do believe he can get y'all back on the, and y'all haven't been that far away because y'all just went to the playoffs, 2 years ago? Based off y'all run game.
Your record, like, hey man, Greg the Big Tuna said your record is who you are. So I mean, we had a trash record. I'm not gonna act like we were.
But y'all won a playoff game.
Yes.
All you gotta do is get there. So I'm not. The record doesn't always mean everything, because you get to the playoffs and then it's what you play.
That was when we had
one in the playoffs. So y'all aren't that far away from being winners again. But I do think he could put y'all back on that winning side consistently.
Okay, so I got a question for you.
Okay.
Do I have to be in love with the quarterback right this second, or can I take the position of I gotta wait and see?
No, you can wait and see.
Okay, so here's what I'm saying. So here's what I think happened. This is the problem. See, quarterbacks always or teams will draft quarterbacks and like they'll draft these projects, right? So for instance, they'll have all of these like they'll have all of these what's the word I'm looking for? All these things going for them. They have a strong arm. They have all these passing yards, all these touchdowns. And then it'll be like, yeah, but they completed like 40% of the passes. And they never look at that and say, well, how did that happen? Or they had all these turnovers, and they never say, how did that happen? All they see is a strong arm. He can throw the ball 80 yards. Listen, we'll figure it out. The problem is Patrick Mahomes worked. And he was that project. And I think, and my fear is you're expecting to now be able to take a project and see, all right, because if you remember correctly, when Patrick Mahomes came out, his completion percentage was down, but he was in this offense that was easy to run. And you know what I mean? They were winning games and blah, 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 blah. And they took a risk on him, a flyer on him, and he turned out to be exactly who he is. Mm-hmm. I think now they're going to think, or not do I think teams usually say when something works, they say, oh, we can duplicate that because we saw how they did that. And if you expect him to be Patrick Mahomes, and that's why you drafted him with all of this skill set, then I think that like that's the wrong move in terms of how you should draft your quarterback. So I usually, so like just to keep in mind, I usually don't like the quarterback that lights up the NFL combine. I like the quarterback that did his thing. Usually I like the quarterback that went to a small school and played good schools, and they were able to bridge that gap because that quarterback was there. That's not a combine thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm now adapting and adjusting to this players getting paid. So now that quarterback that I'm thinking about might actually go to Alabama. You know what I mean? It might go to USC. So like they weren't, because all of those quarterbacks were always busts. You know what I mean? So I'm now adjusting back to that. But what I will say about Anthony Richardson that I really, really, really do like, I really like his demeanor. You know what I mean? I think he's the kind of guy that's like, I don't want to go to the club. I want to watch film. Like I want to watch film. You know, and he's like he's like a galvanizing kind of guy. That's the word on him. You know what I mean? I think Shane Steichen, looking at what he's done with the quarterbacks that he had, like last year when he had Jalen Hurts. He had another one that was a good example. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I think he's the right coach to try to get that out of him. I'm just saying I have some trepidations about Anthony Richardson. I do.
And that's fine. Like, especially as the fan of the team, you do want it because you want to have that guy. And year in and year out, we see times where the guy isn't really the guy. I don't think everybody's going to look at their team and say, "Let's." I mean, yeah, they want to find the next Pat Mahomes because they want to find the next quarterback that get them to the promised land. But I think depending on how you're drafting, if everybody wanted to get the next Pat Mahomes, then I think they would pass up on your Bryce Youngs, your Strouds, your Richardsons, and I think they would try to wait later and get a Levis, a Hooker, or somebody like that. I think those are the moments where teams are saying, let's try to find the next Pat Mahomes, because that's kind of how Pat Mahomes was found. Pat Mahomes didn't go top 5.
Nah.
Pat Mahomes wasn't the first quarter. He was the first quarterback chosen. Like, Pat Mahomes went later, and people were like, well, a lot of people didn't even know who he was. Like, some people knew, but a lot of people were like, well, who's this kid from Texas Tech or whatever? You know what I mean? They didn't really care that much. Now, I just think that when you see something that you got to take the gamble sometimes. And I think a lot of times people done passed up on, like, look at all the teams that passed up on Lamar Jackson. Look at all the teams that passed up on Deshaun Watson. Now, granted, Deshaun Watson has off-field troubles, but Deshaun Watson on the football field is better than every quarterback that was in his draft class, probably better than every quarterback that was in the past couple of draft classes. And people, they wanted to try to pass up on him. So I think sometimes you got to pull that trigger when you got the other pieces around to say, this young guy could work, and this young guy could work for a long time. And he can, build on his franchise for us. And I think he has those talents. Like I said, he's almost identical to a Cam Newton. A little bit more speed, a little bit less wear and tear with banging and stuff like that. So I feel like, look how successful Cam was until they tried to take him out of his element. You keep kids like this in their element, they can succeed. Y'all actually have the offense to keep this kid in his element, to utilize his talents to the fullest, instead of finding a hidden gem that might work. And, we've only seen one Pat Mahomes. We haven't seen too many others. Maybe you could say Russell Wilson, but we know he would have been a top quarterback if he wasn't so small. You know what I mean? Like, so right. I just think it's that thing. But yes, you're supposed to have second thoughts and second guess who that person is, because y'all did draft him 4th overall, and it's a league where he better work now or it's a bust.
Like for instance, I don't want to see him this year, and I feel as though they're going to try to put him
out. Have to see him this year.
Oh, that's terrible.
Who are you starting over him? All right, so
don't word it like that. You got to word it differently.
Week one. Who is your ideal starting quarterback for the Colts?
See, all right, once again, you got to word, because I'm gonna give you an answer, and this gonna sound blasphemous.
No, I want to hear from the fans' perspective. Knowing football, I just want to hear it and why.
Gardner Minshew.
Okay, so you want to start Gardner Minshew week 1, and just because you want the young man to sit first.
It's not that I want him to sit first. I want, in practice, for them to identify why his completion percentage was low and why his turnovers were high, and have him work on the mechanics that basically says, okay, this is the answer to that, and have him not have to focus on a game plan simultaneously to have to fix that. That's what I would want.
Also, sidebar, let me bring this to your attention. I'm mad my man's ain't here with us too. You guys actually lied to me. You guys told me, and we're speaking Gardner Minshew, you guys told me that the Eagles with Gardner Minshew were scoring 30 points a game in both of their games. Now, they did do it against the Cowboys, but they only scored like 10 against the Saints, and they lost both games. So that just goes back into that argument.
So they didn't win one of those games with Gardner Minshew.
They
Okay.
lost both, and they only scored 10 points the one game.
Okay.
So, so again, with you saying you want Gardner Minshew to start, this is the guy you want to drive the boat for y'all.
So
I'm not mad at that.
It's not drive the boat. It's basically just saying, look, we're not Super Bowl contenders, okay?
Let the vet play first.
Let him play. Let's get the continuity going so that when we're able, like next year, if Anthony Richardson pans out next year, I think we're a problem. Now, I would rather put him in a situation where it's easy for him to understand, like when he takes a step, how this feels and how this is supposed to go. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is, my thought is, if that person while they're doing that does not have to worry about the game plan, mm-hmm. It's easy for them to understand. I mean, what's going on?
So, do you feel that way about the other two quarterbacks ahead of him? Or is this just because you're a Colts fan and you want your quarterback to succeed?
It's different with them. I don't feel like that with Bryce Young. I'll say that. And I say that because he's the kind of person mechanically, his mechanics are strong. So he, like, the answer for him is not the same answer, or his answer to how he gets better is not the same answer. So exactly. So
that makes sense. I'm not mad at that. Honestly, I would like to see Richardson start day one because I just feel he's better than Gardner Minshew. And you guys aren't that far away of winning. Yes, the young is going to have to take his bumps, but I think his natural ability, like all right, the play breaks down, I can run, I can use my legs. I think they strive away from that too much when they get to the NFL because the NFL tries to make these improvised type quarterbacks like Pat Mahomes. That is where the game becomes Pat Mahomes, like Aaron Rodgers, but we see the success, even though he doesn't win the big games, we see the success in the Bills quarterback with using his legs. This is the play, it breaks down, go. I think if Richardson is put in that position with your offense, this is the play. If it breaks down, take off. I think y'all will be so explosive as an offense. I wouldn't want to see Gardner Minshew out there.
But you named who I would want him to be more like when you said Pat Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, because with them at their peak, yes, they could.
Nobody can be because they have a different way of seeing the game and throwing the football. Like Pat Mahomes is throwing passes behind his back, no look passes. Like he's doing crazy stuff that we've never seen.
That's out of his mind. I don't
know. That's nothing you can't compare any quarterback to that. Yeah, like he throws with his left hand. How do you do that? Like you can't compare him to anybody, and that's where teams go wrong. Stop trying to compare that man, that freak of nature man, to anybody else.
I'm with it. I got it. So I got it. What's good? So you think?
Let's go to who I think is possibly, if it's going to be a bust, this is going to be a bust.
So CJ Stroud, you think it's going to be a bust?
CJ Stroud is, and this is why, because I think he's good. But one thing I will say, like you said earlier, the big school quarterbacks, a lot of times I'm not a fan of them. It's two schools. I'm never really a fan of them, no matter how good they do in college. Ohio's quarterbacks. No matter how good they do in college, no matter how high their draft projection is, I don't think they're going to be successful in the league almost ever. And it's Ohio State and USC. Those are the two schools that, and granted,
you might be right. USC got somebody who.
But that's what I'm about to say. Times are going to change eventually because Alabama used to be on this list for me. Mm-hmm. And then they spit out a couple that were pretty good to me. Mm-hmm. USC next year is probably going to have the best quarterback in the nation and probably the number one overall pick depending on who gets the number 1 pick, but that's probably going to be the first quarterback to go in Caleb Williams. So I'm probably going to have to take this statement back next year.
Okay.
But CJ Stroud, I do think he's good. I think he has had some of the best weapons in the nation with his receiving core. So that makes your job easy. It's Ohio State. Like, we see what happens. We see who they play, who they beat up on. We see who they struggle with. And he's had some great games. I think he's athletic. I don't think he does anything amazing, but he does a lot of things very good. But with him going to the Houston Texans, that is probably the worst thing that can happen to him. Mm-hmm. Because there is no sign of growth there at all in that organization no time soon.
Yeah, JV. I swear, and I'm not even playing with you, I didn't think we would agree on any of these quarterbacks. I couldn't agree with you more. Bro, I think he's good. I think he's the bust. I said him and Will Levis. I said both of them, I think both of them are going to be busts. That's what I said on the last episode. Yo, do you know who he had to throw the ball to? Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., who's the guy from the Jets? I can't even think of his name right now. Wilson from the Jets, and the guy from the Saints too.
Yeah, and it's crazy because that was my boy. I can't think of his name right off.
So like he was throwing
loaded. He was loaded
in situations. His third best wide receiver was better than the opposing team's best cornerback. Yep. He's never going to see that again. Not only that, his offensive line was always better, or more times than not better than the defensive line that they were blocking. And inversely, his defensive line was usually better than the offensive line that was trying to stop him. And their cornerbacks were better than the wide receivers. They were easy. Like these numbers, you're right. Like going to Houston, now that's completely the opposite. He's going to have the worst receiving core. And he's going to have, well, actually, he does have Stingley. He's actually pretty good. So I can't say he had the worst.
Stingley is amazing. And I hope he's 100% healthy to show how amazing he is. Yeah. He also needs to get that. No, that defense is going to be all right.
But what I'm saying, the point I'm saying is, I'm looking at like he might have thrown the ball to like 3 Hall of Famers in college.
Yes.
And I'm like going to Houston, you're never going to have anything close to that. So yes, I think CJ Stroud.
And on top of that, you have to see the way Ohio State plays. All their passes are downfield against the 1-on-1 or quick passes that break for long ones. He doesn't have to throw guys open. He just got to give them the 50-50 ball. He doesn't have to, dice up the middle and in between 2 defenders he doesn't have to do any of that. It's it's a read kind of offense. Okay, 1-on-1 situation, give it to him. 1-on-1 situation, give it to him. They're some of the best route runners in the nation.
Huge windows.
Yeah, they're some of the best route runners in the nation. Their separation is crazy. There's nothing you can do. So it's like, yes, you're talented, but you are about to have to go against so much adversity that you're not going to look as talented anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just, I think he's just, it's what happens to most top quarterbacks. You go to some of the worst teams in the NFL, and it's the NFL. Everybody's fast. Everybody's strong. Everybody's smart. Everybody's quick. You have to be exceptionally good to be here for a long time.
Right.
And I think he has good mechanics. You're going to fail just because of the team you're on. And like I said, that organization is not really in the draft wise. Yes, they're trying to get better. They're drafting well. Even what they did with moving up to even get Will Anderson. So you got an amazing pass rusher to go with Stingley as a corner, and you're going to try to build up your franchise. But y'all aren't about to get better no time soon. Y'all about to have the top 5 pick the next couple of years, probably.
Right. So
now this next guy.
So yeah, going to Bryce. I'm actually curious about what you say about this one.
I personally think, even though everything we just said about CJ Stroud, we could kind of say about Bryce Young, but Bryce Young is a better throwing quarterback than CJ Stroud to me. He's a smarter quarterback than CJ Stroud to me. You can see in his offense, he makes more decisions. He's more of an improviser in his offense than CJ Stroud is. He's the better quarterback. That's why he got picked first. Because it wasn't one of those things like, yeah, you might be happy with either or, but you want Bryce Young. Because he's just the better quarterback. To me, he's the best quarterback in the draft. Like I said, Anderson has great upside, but I think Bryce, he's the more proven, he's the more prepared, he's the best quarterback in this draft. Now, outside of just his skill level, even though they had the first pick, that team really was only a quarterback away from being mid-tier to top of their division type.
Didn't they make the playoffs last year?
I think they just missed the playoffs.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay, because Tampa Bay, yep.
Yeah, I think they just missed the playoffs. But with everything they already had going, like their defense is tough. Even with losing McCaffrey, their run game is tough. Literally all we've been saying the past couple years the Panthers needed was a quarterback. And now they got one that they're going to have for a long time. I think they're going to build around him. I think they're going to put him in the best position to win as they can. I think they're going to play to his strengths. I think that organization is going to do what they need to do. They did it with Cam. They tried it with Sam Darnold. He just wasn't good enough. They do it with their quarterbacks. They just got to find the right quarterback. And I think they found the right quarterback. I think they're probably going to have if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to have another playoff push to get there. They're going to be in that top ranking in that division to me.
Yeah, so you know who Bryce Young actually reminds me of a little bit. It's not the same quarterback. I'm just saying inversely. Chad Pennington. Now, I really like Chad Pennington. The only difference between Chad Pennington and him is Chad Pennington's a little bigger.
Yeah.
But had a weaker arm. Chad Pennington's hang up was always that he had a weak arm. And Bryce Young is a little smaller, but he has a stronger arm. And I think when I say that to say, I think I look at Bryce and I say, I think he's good. I think he has a ceiling though. You know what I mean? I think he's a quarterback that can get you a couple division titles, definitely get you in the playoffs. It's just something about him. I don't know. It might be the injury. He got to do some squats or something, man. He got to bulk up. But like, it's like, I think he's a good quarterback. I think he'll be like, all right, this is their franchise quarterback. I just think he's the kind of guy like where like they might have a team and they need him to be something a little bit more than he is. Then at that point, I don't know. You know what I mean? But that's what he reminds me of a little bit.
See, I think he's going to be the one that can answer those calls when they need him, because he's not a quarterback that they're going to need.
See, that's a statement. That's a statement right there.
Because I don't think they're this. You know, this is a throwing league. It's a quarterback happy league. Everybody wants their quarterback to throw 50, 60 times for whatever reason. I don't know. I think that he's going to be the guy that you can get out there to throw 30 times, but he's going to make the smart decisions when his name is called upon.
Okay.
To move the chains. And I think once you got that, you're on to something, and you got something you could build onto. So I think he's going to be able to answer those calls when they need him. Because like I said, they're going to run the football. They had the two-headed monster last year. I can't think off the back of what moves, other transactions they've made in the offseason, but I think they're going to be okay. I know they did lose DJ Moore, which, you know, that could hurt a young quarterback, but I think he's going to be all right. I think he's going to do well. And with the way that defense plays, I think he's going to be able to answer those moments when they need him.
All right. Cool. Okay, well that pretty much sums up the rookie quarterbacks. In a second, we're going to talk about these vet quarterbacks. We have quarterbacks in, then we're going to have quarterbacks out.
Okay.
So I ain't even going to act like I didn't just like we filmed like half of the segment and forgot to push record. So guys, we doing this one again.
let's the second time probably gonna be better.
So I just want you to know this isn't as off the cuff as you would think, but it's all good. All good. So we're going to jump right back into it. So in the first segment, we talked about the quarterbacks that are coming in. Now we talking about the quarterbacks that are going out. We were talking about the top 10 quarterbacks of all time. Except we wanted to make this a little bit more difficult. So we're keeping out the obvious choices. So for all intents and purposes, we're giving you our top 10 quarterbacks of all time, minus Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, and Pat Mahomes. That's right. That's right. I don't want to hear nothing about it. We talking about it. We doing this. All right. So, Jay.
We're gonna let you start again with that sorry behind quarterback that you named at number 10.
Because he deserves it.
He does not.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear what y'all got to think about this. Terry Bradshaw, number 10. Terry Bradshaw. Oh, I forgot. Hold on. But once again, my honorable mention. I forgot my honorable mention.
Okay.
Excuse me. My honorable mention is Donovan McNabb. I think he got a bad rap for what happened in Philly. Yes, I saw him throw the ball in the dirt a lot of times. I'm not gonna lie to you. Yes, I did. But
I'll bring that up too. But
but when you look at what he did for 10 years in the NFC East, going to 5 NFC championship games, getting to a Super Bowl, the NFC East hasn't even had a repeat champion since he did it, and they did it like maybe 3 years in a row, and then they did it like 5 out of 10 years, probably. That sounds about right. So I think with Donovan McNabb, what he did, what he carried with no real great wide receiver, and the one time he got TO, he goes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. So going back to what I'm saying, yes, I'm not going to go back and forth with you. Terry Bradshaw is on this list. I'm not going to go back with you.
No disrespect to the Steelers. You know, my father's actually a Steelers fan. So if they watch this, they're probably going to have something to say to me. My dad and all my uncles, they're Steelers fans. They're probably going to have something to me about it. But I tell them this too. I don't care. He is the luckiest quarterback in NFL history. And like I said before, not only in NFL history, but the start of his run started in college, where the only reason he became the starting quarterback was because the father from Duck Dynasty, who was the starting quarterback at that college, decided he wanted to go duck hunting that year and quit the football team. So this guy is just lucky. You have Hall of Fame wide receivers on your side with Lynn Swann and Stallworth. Then you have Frank O'Hara, rest in peace, Brownson County native, went to RV High School around the way. You had him in the backfield. You had the Steel Curtain. That is one of the best defenses in NFL history. If you don't win multiple Super Bowls with that, then you are the worst quarterback in NFL history. So I am not going to praise him for being on a team that won 4 Super Bowls because the total team was amazing.
JB,
I'm not doing it. It's other quarterbacks better than him. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it.
JB, I think you dropped the first Snapple fact because you don't know football history.
It's the truth.
He said Duck Dynasty.
When I heard that story, I couldn't believe it. I would never live that down.
Oh man.
He is the most I always say it's 2 quarterbacks in NFL history who are the luckiest quarterbacks in NFL history. It is him and it is Troy Aikman. They won a lot, yes, and I'm not taking that away from them. But at some point, you have to realize some of these quarterbacks win because that team is amazing.
So I think Troy Aikman is luckier.
He's the luckiest. No, he is the luckiest.
Like he was like the 7th best player on that team. When you look at the Steelers, like, yes, there were better players than him. I'm not gonna lie.
Terry Bradshaw was not top 10 best players on that Steelers team. Are you kidding me? You're wilding. You're wilding. You know what we're gonna do? One of these episodes, we're gonna go look up. I'm gonna look up that roster tonight, and next time you call me on
We
here,
can
I don't
talk
care what
about
we're
this.
talking about.
Listen. You went way too far with 10. You should have said 5. You went way too far with 10. I can live
10,
with that.
bro. Do you know how good that Steeler defense was?
I do.
He was the 5th best on his offense.
No. All right, we'll talk about that another
Yeah,
episode.
we'll do that another
Talk
day. All
about
right,
that
yeah.
another
Finish
episode.
this,
We're gonna
finish
get
this off.
into it. We'll get into it. All right. So my number 9 is Warren Moon. So when I think about the plight of the black quarterback, I don't know if that hit anybody harder than Warren Moon because at every level, like he did nothing but be the best, put up the best numbers, no matter what the situation was, and he had to go to another league. You know what I mean? He couldn't go to the best college. He had to go to another league. Then in the NFL, so half of his NFL career, he only had half of his quarterback professional career in the NFL, and he still was able to put up like crazy Hall of Fame numbers. So I think Warren Moon very slept on, very 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 slept on. My number 8 guy, I have Jim Kelly. Talking about going to the Super Bowl 4 times, I get it. Yes, he did lose those Super Bowls, but I feel as though in today's climate, if you go to the Super Bowl and lose, people give that as a badge of honor. Like, yes, you did it, and to some degree, you're right. But I do think Jim Kelly, for what that offense was, is definitely held back for not winning those Super Bowls.
Okay.
So that's what that is. Okay. So then 10, 8, 7. So my number 7 guy, Kurt Warner. I mean, greatest show on turf. I mean, we don't even have to go any further than that. But when I look at what he did with 2 franchises that routinely were at the bottom of the league,
Yep.
and they both went to the Super Bowl.
He was old Kurt Warner when he took the Cardinals too. So it wasn't like he was still young.
Kurt.
He was old Kurt. So yeah, I agree. That was
and it was a great like one of the greatest passes of all time. That's how they lost.
Yep.
Santana home. So that's here nor there. Next on my list, I got Steve Young. Okay. To me, when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, to me, Steve Young was the cool quarterback. That was the guy that was like, all right, he probably gets the most girls. You know what I mean? He's cool the way he does. He ran the ball a little bit more, and he was shifty, and I don't know. He got black people, he got white people. Everybody just thought he was cool, and they were winning.
He won. Yeah, they were the winning team when we were coming up. Mm-hmm. Them and the Cowboys. When we were little kids, those were some of the winning teams, the 49ers and the Cowboys. So Steve Young was in that limelight at that time.
Yes. All right. And then going next on my list, I got Brett Favre. Now, before when I was talking about quarterbacks and like demeanors and stuff like that, for me, if I want the prototype for the quarterback and how I would want him to lead my franchise, it would be Brett Favre. Now, today it's a little different because he did some stuff in Mississippi. We're not getting into all of that. But when he was playing, Brett Favre was that guy, and he galvanized his troops. Everybody knew they could talk to him. He wasn't trying to act like he was above anybody. He was just that was my guy. Now, ironically, the next guy on my list is Aaron Rodgers. Now, to me, you could have an argument between him and Patrick Mahomes on who actually is the most talented quarterback of all time.
Yeah. Those are actually my 2.
Right. Now, I think Aaron Rodgers, his attitude definitely has brought him down because he definitely did break up some locker rooms, and he did some stuff like that. But the talent is the talent. He's got a Super Bowl. He's got 2 of the last 3 MVPs. So this is later on in his career. So now let's see. He's on the Jets, and I'm actually pretty curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about that, but the AFC East is crazy this year.
We'll have time to get into that one day.
Got you. So Then we have and I was going back and forth with this one. These two were hard for me, but because I really do like this guy a lot. But my number three guy is Drew Brees. That's my number three guy. When you looked at the era when we were growing up when you had Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, Drew Brees was right there. And he had numbers to back up that he was putting up better numbers than both of them anyway. So, he's no slouch in anything. Drew Brees lit you up. He's the person now going to my next guy when I get to it, but Drew Brees was the guy that basically made it like, oh, I can throw 5,000 yards routinely.
Mm-hmm.
But my number two guy is the first person to throw for 5,000 yards because they didn't think that was possible. And that's Dan Marino. Um, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I can't say the one thing that, and I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit more about it.
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect, I don't think that he had the weapons that at the time they thought that he had. And I think that his team wasn't able to help him as much as they needed to. But Dan Marino, man, he was a killer. He was a stone cold killer. And my number one quarterback of all time, well, in this one,
In this area, all
in
time.
this scenario, you gonna love this one. You gonna eat this up, John Elway.
Of course, why not?
So for me, I think John Elway is the prototype for what a quarterback is supposed to do. When you talk about rocket arm, when you talk about control of offense, when you talk about accuracy, we talk about completion percentage, when you talk about running ability, running off, passing off the run, everything. To me, the prototype for me for what a quarterback is supposed to be, you can look at it, and I think Patrick Mahomes has been the next generation of that. It's John Elway. I think it's too many ways for him to get you. It's too many ways for him to overcome the schemes that you have for him, and that's what makes him so dangerous to me.
See, I do agree with that. Um, he's definitely up there. Now, me, I have him as number two because personally, I have Dan Marino as number one. Everything you've said about Dan Marino, I mean about John Elway with prototype quarterback and stuff like that, I feel that way about Dan Marino. But before I even get into the Dan Marino thing, now that I do have my notes up, I'll go from 10 to 1. And surprisingly, our list isn't that far off.
Yeah, that's not the premise of this show. Okay, you're supposed to be different than that.
I know, and that's what's crazy because you know what I mean? So, but I do have some differences, and I'll be able to explain those. So, number 10 all time, you did mention Santonio Holmes caught an amazing pass to win the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And the man that threw that pass to him, Ben Roethlisberger.
You have Ben Roethlisberger on that list and not Terry Bradshaw.
And this is
crazy.
This is why. Now, granted, yes, Ben came into a serious situation. Ben came into a very, very similar situation as Terry Bradshaw. I just think in our day's game, the Steelers, even though they were good, weren't head and shoulders better than everybody else like the Steel Curtain Steelers were. I'm never giving Terry Bradshaw because on top of that, even though when Ben won, he won for those kind of similar reasons that Terry Bradshaw won. But it's been a lot of years after that where Ben put up the big numbers. Ben won the games. Ben did those things without the superstar cast that he had. So when you take those guys out, like it's very, very hard. And, Ben has some off the field issues where, he kind of gets the middle finger too.
Definitely got some touch. He got
some things that I don't agree with. I feel like Ben Roethlisberger also, because they put so much eggs in his basket, he's kind of the reason that the Steelers franchises went in such a downward spiral and not being able to pay and not wanting to pay other players because they paid him all this money. But just what I've seen in his career, it's enough for me to edge him at number 10.
Okay. Okay, I won't argue that.
Number 9, this might be another kind of crazy one, but I got Michael Vick. Michael Vick changed, even though we had other quarterbacks who were mobile. Like, you had Randall Cunningham before Michael Vick, right? But Michael Vick changed the game as far as that dual threat quarterback thing. Michael Vick changed the game as far as the athletic quarterback. And people always try to diminish his arm talent. He had a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And people always tried to diminish his accuracy, but that gun was accurate. And he did it with a Algie Crumpler and no receivers, really. And he took a terrible team to the playoffs on the strength of his legs and arm talent alone. And he always got the bad, you know what I mean? If certain things didn't happen in his career, like his career could have been so much crazier. It's guys now in this day and age of the dual threat quarterback who we're just seeing be the next Michael Vick. Like, you see Lamar Jackson, you see Cam Newton was like broke his rushing records and stuff like that. Like, we've seen his records get broken more recent times, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. So I got him at 9.
Can I say something about? Can I say something about Vic? So I think most people are going to disagree with that, but for us, when we were growing up, for us, what
he was the guy. Everybody wanted to be Michael Vick.
Oh my! Like hold on. Madden is Madden because they was like, oh, I can do what Michael Vick is doing. That was kind of how he was. It was unfair. So,
and that's kind of why I put him in there, because of the way he revolutionized the game. It's, you know what I mean? Yeah, people have more numbers. Yeah, people played more years. People have more success. But Mike was the guy in our time, in that time. And he, you know, nobody's seen anything like that before. Yes. So, you know what I mean? I got to show that love to him because, you know, and to this day, the dual threat quarterbacks don't get the respect they deserve. Mm-hmm. But so 8, I have Kurt Warner for all the same reasons. Mm-hmm. 7, I have Warren Moon for all the same reasons. Everything you said. Warren Moon, he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history to me.
100%.
And, you know, like I said, we weren't there to really see it, but you could do your research. You could go to your YouTube.
We saw him with the Vikings.
We seen older him. We seen older him. You know what I mean? We seen stuff. You feel me? But like to get the full just, like, yeah, you could go look up the highlights. We had NFL Classic. We had NFL films and all that stuff. So some of these guys we were still able to see and notice what greatness was. So yeah, 6, I got Steve Young. Mm-hmm. You know, like you said, for all those same reasons. Like that. That's why I said, like, our lists are very, very similar. Mm-hmm. 5, Brett Favre. One thing I'll say about Brett Favre, just that gunslinger mentality that he had. Like, all right, I could make the mistake this play, but guess what? When next drive, I'm going back to do the same thing.
Yes, and it didn't matter to Brett Favre. He would let that shit
let it go. And he let it go his whole career. Even his old days with the Jets, his old days with the Vikings, he still was letting that thing go. And, you know, I mean, he's one of those guys who in our era was big time. 4, same thing. I have Aaron Rodgers. I have Aaron Rodgers above Brett Favre, even though, you know, he came under him. Aaron Rodgers, like you said, Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes are the most talented all-around quarterbacks in NFL history.
And I just want to say, it really did hurt that I put Aaron Rodgers above Brett Favre because
it doesn't hurt me.
Brett Favre more.
It doesn't hurt me. Honestly, my next 2 picks, so Aaron Rodgers is I have as 4th, and Drew Brees I have 3rd. Those 2 guys are the only quarterbacks in my time watching football that won Super Bowls on their quarterbacking and arm talent. Even seeing, I mean, you know, you could add Pat Mahomes in there now too, but even seeing, like, you know, Peyton Manning win his Super Bowls, Peyton Manning didn't win his Super Bowls on him. Yes, his brain and, you know, the adjustments they made due to his brain or whatever the case may be.
Right. You're absolutely right.
We ran the football. Y'all ran the football. That's how we won those games. Defense and running the football. Mm-hmm. So Even watching a lot of these other guys who won, like I said, Ben Roethlisberger, his championship one didn't come off his arm talent alone. You know what I mean? He had good teams behind him. Like we said, Terry Bradshaw, he had great teams behind him. Steve Young, even like Steve Young, yeah, he did this, that, and the third, but look at the weapons he had there. Like Aaron Rodgers,
Jerry Rice and T.O.
yes, like
And
Aaron Rodgers
AJ Stokes.
were guys who made their talent around them better.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't household names. They made them better. And they didn't have to run the football 30 times in the Super Bowl to win. So, like, I got Aaron Rodgers, and then third, I got Drew Brees. And like you said, like, you've said enough for a lot of these players, so I don't have to get into it. Now, my top two, surprisingly, I don't have Elway number one. I have him number two. And he's amazing. He's talented. He's amazing. He's been to the Super Bowl multiple times. He's won 2 Super Bowls, and he's won them back to back. We hadn't seen that in years until they did it. He was that career. He was that franchise changing guy for the Denver Broncos. And I got in and watched him. More his tail end. We weren't born when he got drafted and stuff like that. So we seen the tail end, and Terrell Davis and them guys come in and help win those championships. But he deserved those championships because he put in that work. Number one, I have Dan Marino, and like I said, if I had a kid and my kid said they wanted to play quarterback, and I had to give them film to watch to learn quarterback mechanics and all of that stuff, I'm putting on a Dan Marino tape before I put on any tape of any quarterback in NFL history. He just had that God-given arm talent, from accuracy to strength to the way it looked, the mechanics of how to stand in the pocket, how to release the football. All of those things were just perfect. And his knock has always been he never won.
Right.
And he didn't win because, like I said before, when I asked guys from his era that watched him in his era, who was his weapons in his career? You would get guys,
Mark, like 5 uhs before.
Yeah, before you could say Mark Clayton. Like, if you ask me any quarterback that was great in my era, I could tell you all their weapons. Or I could tell you he was just so great he ain't have no weapons. But that's rare. Dan Marino was the guy, like, I don't know his weapons. Like, or I knew his one weapon. He doesn't have a plethora of weapons. He didn't have an amazing tight end, amazing wide receivers, an amazing running back, amazing line. Like, he didn't have those things. He put up those 5,000 yard. He put up that 5,000 yard season in a time where they were only throwing for 2,400 yards.
Absolutely. They didn't think it was possible.
Imagine Dan Marino in today's football.
He might throw for 7,000 yards.
Exactly. And that's my whole thing. So, like, that's why I've always said, like, outside of those guys who just their career you just can't put past, Dan Marino has always been the top guy to me. Like,
keep that in mind because that's a strong point. Like, he threw 5,000 yards. If he came in today and he said, "Wait a minute, you can't touch my wide receivers after 5 yards."
Oh yeah, I'm going.
It might be 7,000 yards, and you're
with athletic tight ends the way they're athletic now. Oh yeah, he'd go crazy. He'd be the best quarterback of all times. If Dan Marino could have squeezed out one Super Bowl, he'd be the second best. He'd be the second best quarterback ever.
Yeah,
maybe third now with what Pat Mahomes is doing, because that's a different animal.
He would definitely be Mount Rushmore.
Yes, he'd be top 4 easily. Mm-hmm. We'd be knocking guys off that we would never think we would knock off. Like, we'd mess around and be knocking Peyton Manning down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how good Dan Marino was in his time, and it wasn't appreciated enough. But also, because you gave an honorable mention this whole time, I've been thinking honorable mention. And I don't know if, because I honestly do love the Jim Kelly. I like Kelly. That was a great pick. I could have put him in there too, honestly. But the person I want to give that honorable mention love to is Steve McNair. Steve McNair was amazing.
Air McNair.
And he had a very short stint. He had an untimely death. But even in his older age, he slung the football. and he did it with so much accuracy, with so much talent. Like he could get out the pocket, extend the play. He was just so smart. He was very, very good, and I think he's a guy, also a guy who I say is one of the top. When you talk underrated quarterbacks in NFL history, he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
That goes without saying. Like, so I'm sure, like earlier in the episode when I said that Hendon Hooker, like I think his ceiling could be Steve McNair. I'm sure there's millions of people who'll be like, well, that's not very high. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like Steve McNair, you
I
could
almost looked at you as that might be a little too high for him. Because knowing how talented Steve McNair was, like Steve McNair is one of those guys like that. Like I said, people don't unless you had to be there. Like it's that point in time where like you just had to be there to see Steve McNair play to see exactly how good that man really was at playing quarterback.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't have said that any better myself, man. Steve McNair. I love Steve McNair, man.
I'm very surprised that our lists were so similar though. That is kind of crazy.
You don't never see see. First of all, for everybody who doesn't know, me and JB went to college together,
and we have not seen eye to eye this much ever. Like these two episodes, like to be honest with you, the two episodes we've done together, we've seen eye to eye a little too much compared to the conversations we have had since we've known each other.
I'm gonna tell him. No, first of all, don't tell him everything. But
no. Certain
we
things
was like, hold on, we went to Delaware State University, and we was in Tubman Hall, and I swear, outside, forget the second floor. We was on the top floor. Forget the third floor, the second floor, the first floor. Outside and everything in between, they could hear us yelling at the top of our lungs. What are you talking about? You don't know nothing about what you're talking about right now.
Exactly. Like that was, yeah. And that's why it's actually for us. I don't know. Maybe you know what it is? I'm starting to think maybe you've come to your senses and understand that JB was right.
I want you to know that was real spiteful what you did there. Especially like they're not going like, everybody's not going to really understand what you did there, but that was real spiteful what you did there.
That's the beauty of this thing we do.
Let me tell you something. I ain't never been scared. All these people know I've never been scared to say something, okay?
No, that's facts.
But Jay, man, once again, man, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, man.
Oh.
We happy to have you on have you with the family, the Cuz You Don't Know family, man. It's always a pleasure, man. We love the heat that you bring.
Appreciate you for bringing me on, man. You already know how we get down.
Yeah, man. But once again, man, I'm gonna have to tell you, man, Cuz you don't know football, man. I want to thank you guys for tuning in again. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok. You know so yeah, I'm running out of things to say at this point. So once again, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you when you see you.